Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, HeavenClone here, and how y'all doing? Bring you guys another Fortnite video. Today we're going to be discussing another important and basic topic for you guys, and that is positioning. So what I mean by positioning is that you want to be able to mask your movements as much as possible while maintaining an advantageous position over your enemy. This can lead to either you having a height advantage or having the element of surprise on your enemy. Now, before we continue, I did listen to feedback from the previous video, and a lot of people asked for a table of contents at the start of a video. As such, on screen right now, you guys can see there's a table of contents, and if you guys want specific timestamps to which you can refer to for these different topics, they're going to be in the description below. So the first topic we're going to be covering is solo positioning. So as a solo player, you need to be able to position yourself properly without a team in order to have the best personal advantage for yourself, right? Being able to understand this perfectly allows you to then coordinate your positioning with your team members in order to have the best team positioning possible. So we're going to be breaking this down into two different parts: idle positioning and active positioning. Active positioning meaning that when you're on the move traveling from place to place. Idle meaning when you're basing up somewhere or holding a certain position. Also, keep in mind, this guide does not cover mid-gunfight positioning. This will be covered in a separate video which will be covering gunfights specifically. This is essentially a guide that allows you to have the best positioning outside of a gunfight. That way, when you do start fighting someone, you already start with an advantageous position. So idle solo positioning can be summed up by the following statement: you want to look for high ground and areas which you can see far and shoot down at your enemies without exposing yourself from too many directions at once. You want to limit the number of routes that lead to you so that you can either predict where enemies may approach from or hear where they are building up to you. Now, I know these statements may sound very vague to you, and so I'm going to sum them up with a single word: control. You want to be able to get into a position that allows you to control all of your surroundings in every direction while ensuring your safety, okay? So, for example, let's say Dusty Depot. Setting up a base on top of Dusty is very common, and that's because it's a very good control position, because it allows you to have a solid view on the entire surrounding area, which allows you to control any enemies approaching you and ensure your safety. So as I said, these control areas will typically be areas that are high up on hills. For rural areas or in urban areas, it'll be buildings, and these areas are very high up and keep you protected because they limit the enemy's approaches and limit the area, the directions from which you can be shot. So that's all fine and dandy, right? Okay, cool. I can now base up and be in a great position when I'm in a settlement or anywhere where I do not want to move. But what about when I want to travel from place to place? How do I ensure that I have the maximum chances of being at an advantageous position if a fight breaks out? Well, that's how that comes down to active positioning. So while traveling, you want to always take the route which maximizes the time during which you are at an advantage, all right? So for example, instead of going through the river to go somewhere, go up on the hill. That way, if you see someone down in the river, instantly you're at an advantageous position. You can shoot down at them and they're going to be in trouble, okay? Or let's say, for example, you have the option to go, let's say you're leaving Pleasant Park and you have the option to go through the hills or to go through the harbor along the Loot Lake or to cross through Loot Lake, which is absolutely never do that, okay? Obviously, you should go through the hills because the hills will keep you covered from different angles, and getting on the hills allow you to shoot down, which is good because in this game, height is a great advantage to have. Another way to maximize your safety is to move from cover to cover. I often see people that do not do this ever. They actually walk through completely open fields without cover, and then I can shoot them easily and they have nowhere to hide. Of course, in those cases, they can build around themselves, but oftentimes I can get a lot of damage in before they do that, right? Putting me at an advantage for that gunfight. So if possible, you want to always avoid open areas and you want to go from cover to cover. If you're going somewhere, you do not have to walk in a straight line to get there. You can actually move in zigzags, going from rock to tree to house, in order to just maximize your safety, because if someone's tracking you and they see you going from cover to cover, okay, it'll be harder for them to start shooting at you because you'll spend a lot less time in the open. And if you have awareness, you'll be able to look behind you and actually see them coming for you. So several open areas that you want to avoid are either the tops of hills or the middle of streets in urban areas. So there's a bit of a contradiction here, because I did say the tops of hills, even though earlier I always told you guys to go for the tops of hills because it's a control position, right? So this is a little bit weird, because when you want to be idle, you want to be on the top of a hill because you want to see the people coming. But when you're traveling, you don't want to get an engagement. Ideally, you do not want to fight anyone, okay, during that time, because it's a weak time where you're traveling and you're open from many directions. So traveling at the top of a hill, completely at the top, is a bad idea because you'll be seen from very far away, even though you'll still also be able to see far away. So what you want to do in order to still be able to have that vision over your surroundings while traveling on a hill, while still staying hidden, is you want to not walk on the top or like the crest part of the hill, right? The part where it switches from going upwards to downwards, but rather you want to walk just below the crest of a hill in order to cover your body from one direction while still being exposed by another. Unfortunately, this doesn't offer complete protection from every direction. However, it does maximize your cover for that period. Another smart little trick involving the terrain is that of using low points as well as high points, okay? While high points allow you to have a higher position than your enemy while you do not see them, when you do see the enemy and you know where they are and you have the element of surprise, you can use low points in order to mask your approach towards the enemy, right? Instead of shooting at them from very far and hitting very few shots. Since you have the element of surprise, you can sneak up on them and engage them. So in order to do that, what you want to do is, so let's say it's open fields between you and your enemy. However, it's sort of hilly. Well, you can use these little dips and follow along them in order to close the distance between you and your enemy, allowing you to get closer and deal more damage quicker and win a decisive engagement. Alright, so those are pretty much all the tips and tricks I have for you guys regarding solo positioning. So now we'll be moving on to squads and duo positioning. Do keep in mind that all the solo tips and tricks I just gave you guys should be applied at all times with duos and squads. In order for a team to be strong, all of the members need to be strong. Therefore, if you have good positioning and all of your teammates have good positioning, your team will also have good positioning. So just like with solo positioning, I'll be separating duo and squad positioning into two different parts: idle and active positioning. So starting off with idle positioning, in which you need to dig in with your team and defend a location, you need to space yourselves out. As a team, if you're all grouped in one room or in the same 1-by-1 tower, not only will you be vulnerable to a single explosive, but you'll also get in each other's way when trying to shoot at enemies. Instead, take up positions nearby but far enough that you can shoot at your enemy from different angles. It is much harder for your enemy to take cover if he's taking shots from multiple directions. However, take care not to space yourselves out too much. You need to be able to support your team members if they're attacked individually. For active positioning, you also don't want to bunch up together, because here as well, you'd be vulnerable to a single explosive. You want to keep a good spacing between yourselves as you travel, so that if any one member is attacked, the others are close enough that they can assist, or if they're not seen by the enemy because they're spaced away from the one that's getting attacked, they're able to flank around and attack the enemy from multiple directions. Alright, that's all I've got for you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys learned something, and if you didn't, make sure to leave feedback down below on how I can improve my tutorials. Also, if it's your first time on the channel, make sure to drop a subscribe, because I've got more Fortnite content and tutorials on the way for you guys. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one.